Hello and thanks for joining me for some more landscape photography. Apologies for being away for so long. Now in this video I'm going to be taking you out into the mountains, but before that just a bit of housekeeping. You may have noticed if you follow me on Instagram that I've been advising you to trade Bitcoin. Or rather, I haven't, but the person that hacked my account has. So I'm going to be leaving Instagram. In fact, they've sort of done me a favour. It's next to impossible to get your account back from them. There's no way to contact Instagram. But since it's a pretty crappy platform for showcasing photography anyway, I'm not going to be back. So if you did follow me on there, unfollow me immediately. And you will find me on my Facebook group, mostly Micro Four Thirds landscape photography. So look that up if you want to keep in touch and badger me about making videos more often. So as always, what I'm going to do to start with is look back at just a couple of images that I've taken over the last, I think it's about 8 weeks since the previous video. I have taken quite a few images and shared them on social media, but these two in particular I was pleased with, so I thought I'd show you these. Now this first one is from early March, from, as usual, an early morning dog walk, and at this time of year the marram grass down by Aberfrau Bay is absolutely at its finest. After a harsh winter, all of the colour is bleached out, and in the early morning sunlight you get these fabulous golden hues. And this next image is another quite golden one, but this is at the other end of the day, just a couple of weeks later than the first one, towards the end of March, when I was out with a group and I was inviting people to point their cameras at this particular composition and wait for the light. And as you can see, we did get rather lucky. When the sun goes down over the Irish Sea, the light often pours down through this valley, which is seen from Rhyddhau. That's the valley down towards Dyffryn Nantlle. So, just those couple of images to share. Now let's head out into the mountains. Seven o'clock in the morning on a beautiful calm Easter Saturday. I've been really busy over the last few months, which is why I haven't made many videos, and the last 2 or 3 weeks have been absolutely packed with workshop groups and group outings from camera clubs and one-to-one tuition clients. So every spare minute I've been out with my camera has been with somebody else, and I wouldn't dream of making videos when somebody else has asked me to spend time with them. So Easter Saturday could be a bit dodgy. You may well find me having something to say about certain aspects of today, but I got here really early and look at it, it's absolutely glorious. Yeah, there's not a lot of light going on, but I don't care about that at all. I'll just tailor my photography accordingly. I've got a bag full of all my main camera gear. I'm not traveling at all light today. I've got a few hours to myself and I am going to damn well enjoy it come hell or high water. What I'm trying to do with this is to work out exactly where I'm going to need the camera. No point setting up your tripod until you've worked out exactly where the camera needs to be. There's a lovely twin boathouse over there, which since I was last here has been slightly refurbished and the scaffolding is now gone. The conditions are just perfect. Plus, on this beautiful spring morning, the new growth on the trees hasn't yet filled out completely, so you've just got little hints of bright green, still keeping the texture and spacing between the trees behind the boathouses. So there's a whole bunch of people camping right next to the sign that says no camping, and they've already started chucking their litter about, which is nice of them. Anyway, back to the point. What I want to try and achieve with this shot is to have the camera high enough so that I've got a strip of sky in this beautiful still reflection, and the stones in the foreground don't intersect the line of the reflection of the top of the mountain. Now the top of the mountain won't be in the shot. I'm going to cut it off just a little bit above the boathouses, so they're kind of on the top quarter. But the reflections in the mid-ground create the interest that otherwise you wouldn't have. Normally, if this is all ripply and the water is just light, you'd get your camera down low to compress that mid-ground so that it's not just a big boring slab in the middle. I must say that I can't imagine going back to using an ordinary ball head after using this geared head. It weighs a ton, but it's a bit of equipment now that I won't leave home without, pretty much. So even though today I am planning to head up onto a ridge, I'm prepared to lug the extra weight because it really contributes to nailing down your composition, and it allows you just to make the tiniest of adjustments in any axis without losing the other axes, which you do when you loosen up a ball head. Right, I've got my composition all dialed in, made sure that that rock in the lake isn't intersecting the reflection of the mountain ridge. That'll do nicely. Really simple exposure. I had to wait a little while. There was some ripples because some bozo walked past and threw a stone in front of me. So I had a word with him and then waited for the ripples to go off again, because I want it absolutely flat calm. What I've also got is just a little bit of this willow tree just in the very top corner, almost a little framing device, so I don't mind that. I can live with that quite nicely. So I'm focusing on the rock. I've got that since one exposure. You just saw me capture it, really nothing to it. So all I'm going to do now is take my focusing point up to the boathouse, manually focus on that, get it nice and sharp. That'll do nicely. I don't need to adjust the exposure. It's a photographer's dream today in terms of the exposure values. I'm pretty much in the same place I was a moment ago. I was just thinking about heading off, but decided I'd grab another quick shot. What I've done here is, again, I've positioned my foreground, which is this lovely holly tree. There's a little willow off here to the right, which I don't want in the shot. It's a bit spindly and not really doing anything, so just cut off the edge of my composition in front of that willow. I'm always happy to do a bit of gardening if there's loose stuff or dead stuff, but I'm not going to damage a lovely sapling. But the only thing to note on this particular exposure is that I've decided not to focus stack this, but I do want to not have the backdrop too soft because I want to focus on this lovely holly bush. Well, I'm all done down here by the lake now, and I'm planning to head up this nice zigzaggy path up towards the ridge at Bwlch Sygun, and we'll see if I can find anything up there to photograph. Stopped for a breather, looked over my shoulder, and the vista of the lake, some quite nice texture in the sky now, and just the way the layers of the mountains behind the lake all kind of come down to this nice common vanishing point at the bottom of the Watkin path. So I thought I could do with a breather. I know, it's only been 5 minutes. Anyway, what I've done is I've been walking around with my 12 to 40 on, because that's kind of, your standard focal length, but I was cutting off the far left side of the lake, so I stopped because I was literally just going to grab a snap with my backpack still on, but I've changed lenses, put my 8-25 f4 on, actually shooting at 8mm, which for a vista like this is just perfect. I've got the whole of the lake in, but what I've also got is this really nice fence line and the path leading into the image slightly off to the right, if I'm completely honest. I've polarized the water in the lake, otherwise it's just a big slab of brightness, and it's got a ripple on it now, so it was just as well I stopped and got the images earlier rather than waiting till I was on my way back down. It's often the case that either early in the morning or late at night, when the air starts to settle a little bit, that you get these nice reflections. Anyway, I've got no more excuses for hanging around here. Breather over. Time to head further on up. So I'm just up here on this little summit above Bwlch Sygun, and while I was coming up here, the cloud has really thickened up, so at the moment there isn't anything to point this at. Not too bothered, because I'm quite happy to sit here and wait it out, see if anything happens. It's a beautiful spot and the views are lovely from up here, but I can't see the main peaks. This little peak is just off the path that runs down to Llyn. It's not often that this will be clagged up. Cloud base at the moment is probably about 750 metres. It does tend to sit at 750 to 800 as a rule on days like this. It's kind of a standard cloud base for around here if the peaks aren't clear. Earlier on, the clouds were broken up over the peaks, but I thought, no, I'll head on up here in the hopes of getting a better line of sight, and so my plan has been foiled at the moment. Anyway, like I said, I'm just going to hang around and see what happens, because it's a fantastic way to spend an Easter Saturday. It really is. Beautiful views up here. I've seen one other person on the path going up from Bwlch, so it really is a really quiet little venue for the day. Anyway, while we're waiting, let's have a quick look at the raw files that I captured down by the lake, and then we may or may not be back up here before we finish up.
Now, there isn't a huge amount to talk about with these raw files, but there are a couple of points that are worth having a quick look at. Firstly, the image of the boathouses. Now, this is the first of the focus stack images where I was focusing round about this point on the image. And with that one, this bit of willow tree at the top is in the same focal plane and is quite sharp. But then so is the background. So there's an argument for, well, why not just use the single image? But if you look at the second image where I was focusing on the boathouses, you'll see that these willow branches are now dropping out of focus quite nicely. And so even though they're on the same focal plane as these foreground stones, I prefer to use this blend because it's less distracting around the boathouse, and the boathouse is marginally sharper. So the final image that I'm going to show you will be a blend of those two exposures. Now, for this next image, which of course is that holly bush image, a couple of things here. One is, of course, this bit of crap lying in the foreground, which I took a quick shot of it because I wanted just to demonstrate how much better it is if you do a bit of gardening, get rid of stuff like that. And, you know, it's worth taking the time to make sure that your compositions are as tidy as they can be. Another aspect of this is that I moved it slightly down in this bottom corner. You'll see this bit of light running right into the bottom corner, and actually I preferred it with the stone being slightly intersected. Now normally you'd probably try to avoid, if possible, clipping something that is a discrete object, but in this case I wanted to be able to darken that corner down and not pull your eye right into it, and I might well even crop it a little bit more by the time I finish the final edit. And then just to finish up these few shots, the 8mm wide angle one that I took when I stopped for my breather, all I'm going to do with this one is to crop this area of sky probably to about here and take off this bottom bit as well. And that's how it's going to look. So this is the first stage. Obviously it's an unprocessed raw file at the moment, but that's really all I'm going to do with regards to the composition on this one. So I'll let you take a look at those images and then we'll get back into the hills. This is turning out to be a bit frustrating. I've been getting some really nice light which has been separating the layers along Nant Gwynant. I haven't had one that I'm particularly happy with, but I've set the shot up anyway, so in the event something happens I can grab it. I've put the long lens on and I'm shooting at about 75-80mm, something like that. I'm also using the high resolution mode just in case I find something in post that I want to crop into. I'm not sure I will, but I just wanted to give myself that option later on, just in case this whole session up here turns out to be a bust. That might be all I've got to get something out of it. So I've got a choice. I can either leave the camera off the tripod and grab a few handhelds, which I have been doing, or I can wait it out, because this is quite a nice composition. There's 4 or 5 layers of the flanks of the ridges as they meet along this zigzag bottom of the valley. So it has the potential for quite an interesting shot. The question is, how long am I prepared to wait it out? I'm not in any rush, don't get me wrong, but I can't leave the tripod out forever because I might miss something else. Oh my God, what a quandary. It's still a fantastic day out though. I mean, the views are superb. It's beautifully warm and still. So please don't think that I'm moaning at all, because I'm not. Well, it's pretty much time for me to clock out now, I think. As you can see, the clouds have cleared almost completely now. All the peaks are visible, but because I've had to wait a few hours, we're now getting on for about 1 o'clock, so the sun's pretty high in the sky, and I really don't think there's much else I can be doing up here today. I've had the most fantastic morning out, really enjoyed myself, and so I think it's time to head off back down the hill. Of course, this will be handy along the way because you never know what you're going to see, so you know, don't leave it in your backpack. So yeah, let's get back and see what I've got on the card. Well, now, as it happens, I did actually get a small handful of images that I was reasonably happy with, so I'll put those up for you at the end. I decided I'd take a scenic tour through the Ogwen Valley on the way home, as much to see how busy it was as enjoy the scenery. And oh my goodness, It was pandemonium, and the parking, as usual, was absolutely atrocious. But it just so happened that the boys from North Wales Police were along with a couple of tow trucks getting rid of as many cars as they could manage. So if you're one of those people that came back off the mountain only to find that you had an even longer walk than you thought, well, up yours. And with that, I'm going to leave it there for this one. Thank you ever so much for joining me. I really hope you've enjoyed it. And if you have, why not subscribe and join me next time? Cheers.